Hello, everyone. We are back. I was so excited to cover Revenge of the Sith from a hero's journey perspective that I think we're doing this way earlier than we probably should. We are still, you know, plagiarizing the hero's journey podcast format. We burn for them. And yeah, so how are you doing today, Brian?
I am doing great. I can attest to the fact that we're doing these a little quick. I think I was in the process of watching Attack of the Clones or getting ready to watch Attack of the Clones, and you sent me a text and said, "When are we recording Revenge of the Sith?" And I thought to myself, well, I guess soon I'll get these both watched. I've seen them a time or two, so no big deal getting through the hero's journey steps. So yeah, it's just been really fun going back to visit the prequels, and then hopefully after this one, after we wrap up these three, I think we're going to take just kind of an exploded look at the hero's journey, over the course of the prequel trilogy, kind of the way that those steps line up when you're looking at the three films. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to get into Revenge of the Sith. It was one of my favorites from the prequel trilogy. I have a lot of fond memories of it, and it's always fun going back to revisit it and think about it a little bit differently in the form of the hero's journey. So I'm excited to get into this. I don't know when this is going to release. It's the middle of June right now. This it could be like fall by the time this comes out. I'm not 100% sure, but let's get into it.
Yeah. So, do you have any cool background deets on the film, like awards?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a bunch of fun stuff here for Revenge of the Sith. So this was released on May the 19th in 2005. It was written and directed by George Lucas, of course. The title Revenge of the Sith is a play off of the original title for Return of the Jedi, which was going to be Revenge of the Jedi. Then George Lucas changed it, with the statement that, Jedi wouldn't really take revenge. So, it made sense to use it here, kind of in this sense. Revenge of the Sith was nominated for one Academy Award, Best Achievement in Makeup, which I'm guessing is uh, going there for the end with Anakin Skywalker laying on the shores of Mustafar. That was Dave Elsey and Nikki Gooley were nominated for that. I'm just going to throw this out there, Cassia. Any earthly idea of what it lost to?
So it was like 2005, 2006. Was it Memoirs of a Geisha?
No, that was a very good guess though, because that also came out that same year, which won a lot of Academy Awards, but not this one. It lost to the Chronicles of Narnia, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe there that year. So that's okay. That's okay. It didn't win the Academy Award, but it did rake in a lot of money. It was the number one box office domestically and the second highest grossing film worldwide that year with $868 million. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire took the number one spot there in the worldwide box office. And there's some other fun stuff here too. So there was a little bit of foreshadowing here. So in the original novelization for Return of the Jedi, which came out in May of 1983, James Caan wrote it. But one of the things that he added to the novelization here was that in the story, Obi-Wan is recounting his battle with Anakin, who he says fell into a molten pit. So there you go. That's a fun little tidbit for you. There was a bunch of stuff in that novel that were not correct or did not come to fruition, but that one did. And I think that's kind of fun. We had a scene with Genevieve O'Reilly playing Mon Mothma, but it was cut. So it's fun to think that, this actress who got cast to play this role, which never, saw the actual like screen of the film, is back to play that character all these years later and Rogue One and Andor and stuff like that. So that's pretty fun. And also, this was the first Star Wars film to be rated PG-13. All of the Disney Star Wars films have also been rated PG-13, but this was the first. So gasp, PG-13, adult content coming.
Yeah. Yep, it is. It's not your grandmother's Star Wars movie. Uh, that's
That's
for
right.
sure.
That's right.
All right. And we are going to do kind of like, I don't know, it seems like the original trilogy, like when you're kind of like in high school and being taught like overarching like plot structure, like the monomyth or the hero's journey, like that's brought up along with like Lord of the Rings and
Hmm.
Harry Potter, you know. But I would say like the prequel trilogy, even though it's a tragedy, kind of like maybe it should be brought up in conversation with the hero's journey because it's kind of like what maybe some students have grown up with, you know?
Yeah, I think it's it would be an interesting case, and certainly I am no film school student or writing student or any great scholar of the monomyth here, so I don't know really if this gets talked about at all or if it should be or things like that. But what I think is really interesting here about this, and we'll get into this more when we talk about the prequels as a whole, are we've done this same kind of format now for the Phantom Menace, for Attack of the Clones, and now today we're doing Revenge of the Sith. And if you look at the prequel trilogy, obviously it's the story of Anakin Skywalker's, rise and fall, his turn to Darth Vader. But when we talk about the Phantom Menace, we both had Qui-Gon as the main character in that story. We made kind of the argument that you could see, Anakin or Obi-Wan as the main character in Attack of the Clones. And then here it is Anakin Skywalker, but the three movies as a whole, it's very clearly Anakin Skywalker. So I think that that's interesting. And it's also interesting just to dissect the hero's journey. Kind of on the flip side of that, I was watching this with my wife, and I was telling her that this is what we were doing, and she's like, "So who's the hero in this then? Is it Obi-Wan?" And I'm like, "Well, no, it's still Anakin." Because not all heroes, right, are on this, what we would think as quote unquote the heroic side of the adventure. So it's kind of interesting, I think, on that sense too.
Yeah, so even though it's like a tragedy, like I do think that the prequel trilogy is Campbellian, is mythic. In some cases, I was like, wow, this seems more Campbellian than like 4, 5, or 6 at some points. It's interesting, but yeah, I guess before we fall to the dark side and just cover the hero's journey of Revenge of the Sith, how does Revenge of the Sith link to Knights of the Old Republic?
There are a couple of links that I kind of saw. They're pretty loose, but I think that there's a couple things you could see. So Knights of the Old Republic, kind of a big kind of story trope for that timeline, or like these dark Jedi and Sith troopers, and we kind of see stuff like that, right? We see Anakin falling to the dark side, and certainly there those waters being muddied there. You see the clone troopers turn from good to evil, and kind of that Sith trooper kind of a role. So I kind of see that. I saw some parallels kind of in this master apprentice relationship, and how that works and how that falls apart, and how ultimately it's kind of a battle for the soul of each of the characters. And I kind of saw that akin to like the Malik and Revan storyline. And then kind of the bigger one was actually, so this came out in 2005. KOTOR 2 came out in 2004. And I saw the teachings and the mentorship of Kreia kind of similar to the way that Palpatine was trying to mentor and sway Anakin, and the way is really kind of preying on his emotions, right? Not really giving him clear answers all the time. Really trying to kind of lead Anakin with his teachings. And I saw kind of some parallels there with Kreia. We get to go to Kashyyyk, which is fun, which kind of looks the way that Kashyyyk did in the first game. So I thought that was fun. And I wanted to make mention because I think we both forgot it in the Attack of the Clones. But Manon is definitely a riff on Camino, for sure. It's just the bright and sunny side of Camino. We both totally missed that. So I wanted to make sure I got that amended for the Attack of the Clones episode there. But what about
I
you?
can't.
What I know I couldn't believe it either. I was sitting here getting ready to press record, and I'm like, wait, I totally forgot. But yeah, what about you? Any good links to Revenge of the Sith and KOTOR for you?
So yeah, you mentioned like KOTOR 2 came out in 2004. Like the whole Star Wars world was awaiting episode 3, so excited for it. And one thing that some fans were like, is there a connection between Nihilus's mask and Grievous's mask? They kind of look a little
Mm.
similar, and like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they do, but I think that's just more of like a Star Wars, like the mask looks cool kind of a thing. And I think like Disney Star Wars has kind of reached the apotheosis of like cool outfit, cool helmet, cool mask, Funko Pops galore, but it's just a Star Wars thing, like cool
Yeah.
masks. So,
Yeah, that's even the Disney Lucasfilm intro, right? Is just that like scrolling thing of the masks, the little CGI masks there. So
yeah. And then the dark side kind of affects looks, especially in Knights of the Old Republic too. And some fans are like, "Oh, the dark side, it kind of happened differently in Revenge of the Sith," but I think part of it is also like I think Palpatine is kind of like in control, like he lowers the mask of like what he truly is when he needs to. I
mhm.
kind of think like that's what he always looked like, but he kind of had to pretend to be like Chancellor Sheev Palpatine, like until he kind of knew like he had Anakin under his sway and was fully ready to take the revenge of the Sith, you know? What do you kind of think about the dark side affecting looks?
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's a good kind of piece of filmmaking, right? So whenever you have a character that is evil or on the bad side, or a villainous character, you generally are you're portraying them in darker clothes, you're lighting them more harshly, or in blacks and reds, and that's the same kind of thing here. Obviously, you think of like the Sith like lightsaber, but then you also see things like that very iconic scene where Anakin, or I guess Darth Vader, kind of turns towards the camera. I think he's at the Jedi Temple when that happens, and his eyes are all yellowed out, and it's really, I think, meant to kind of be indicative of looking into someone's soul, right? If you're staring into their eyes, you're seeing that his soul has been corrupted, kind of in that moment. So
Yeah. Someday maybe we'll have golden dark side eyes again. I think they're just so cool and like a really good visual indicator that someone is like not okay. I
mhm.
guess like it is hard for maybe some actors and actresses to wear, you know, contacts or makeup, but it'd be cool to see one day.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah. And I guess like maybe this is just my personal opinion, but we always kind of like in Knights of the Old Republic series kind of have like Jedi versus Sith, but like for me, like this is like the ultimate version, you know, we see like the ultimate Sith Palpatine fight the ultimate Jedi Yoda, you know, and we just kind of see a deterioration between like Obi-Wan and Anakin. Like it's like if you turn to the dark side, does Anakin lose influence with Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Mhm.
Just something I think about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, to think about the fall and the way that happens, and the way that it was, captured here on film in the story that Lucas was telling. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty fun stuff.
Okay, and then I have two more. Revan
Okay.
was an unarmed prisoner, and it's not the Jedi way to kill an unarmed prisoner. And I think like Bastila, when she kind of saves Revan because he was an unarmed prisoner, like she's kind of fulfilling what the Jedi should do, not what the Jedi Council would do, but like what a Jedi should do.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of a nice parallel. And then from episode one, I kind of missed this one. The swoop race really kind of evokes the pod race. And
Mm-hmm.
after the swoop race, enslaved Bastila was freed,
Yeah, there you go.
kind of mirroring Anakin being freed. Okay, so after that introduction, I guess, are you ready to dive into all things Knights of the? Oh wait, we're doing Revenge of the Sith today. Are you ready to dive into all things Revenge of the Sith?
I am ready to dive in all things Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, it was a long wait for 2005, and it's been a long wait to get into the hero's journey of Revenge of the Sith, I think. So let's get into it.
I'm gonna try to be poetic, you know, kind of evoking Matthew Stover's Revenge of the Sith novelization rather than be like, and then this happens, and then this happens. But yeah, like this opening crawl is my favorite. It just kind of starts out with war exclamation point and goes on to say that there are heroes on both sides, evil is everywhere. It kind of sets the stakes that this is a galaxy at war that's kind of the ordinary world.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It starts with that crawl, and then you get the that very iconic kind of ship flyover there. It's that red and white Star Destroyer design, but we're still in the Clone Wars time, so you get to see that, and it kind of pans over it, and then down into this war that is waging, and we finally catch up with Anakin and Obi-Wan flying their ships. There's some trouble with some buzz droids, but they're headed to basically. Uh, try to free Palpatine, right? Grievous has captured Palpatine somehow, some way. I don't really know how that happens if you're the Supreme Chancellor, but that's okay. It happens, and they're on their way to rescue him, and that's where I had kind of the ordinary world. The ordinary world, step one, the hero is seen in their everyday life. Yeah, basically that whole first section, right? This is where the fun begins. This is our ordinary world. It's just a couple of Jedis doing some Clone Wars stuff. Easy peasy.
Yeah, I saw it, the ordinary world as the opening crawl and rescuing the Chancellor. It's like Star Wars at its most fun, and the tone it really is set like in that first scene. It's very quiet. Like you see after the crawl, it pans down onto a setting sun, and we hear a war drum, and it's kind of silent, and then we see these two fighters who are Anakin and Obi-Wan, and like they're flying totally in sync, and they kind of go over the edge together, and then you see like this massive Star War.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. The war is full blown waging on, right? We leave Attack of the Clones, and they're in Geonosis kind of kicking off the war, and now we're seeing it kind of the full scale of what's going on, this battle over top of Coruscant. And yeah, I really like that quiet kind of opening. You get the drums, and it opens up, and then they crash land into the ship, take out battle droids. R2 is there, the real hero of the story. He's also taking
Yeah.
out some battle droids and stuff. But yeah, that's definitely what I saw as kind of um, the ordinary world. And then for me, then yeah, it goes pretty quickly into the call to adventure, because obviously this is Anakin's story, and it's really the story of his downfall. And I think that initiating incident, at least for me, was once they get to Palpatine. They have the fight with Count Dooku, which I saw as all kind of the ordinary world. But then when Palpatine raises the issue of going ahead and taking off his head, that to me was the call to adventure for Anakin in this dark side tale.
Oh, that's so interesting. I have my call to adventure a little bit later, but I think like this prologue does set up kind of like a lot of the story going forward, so it is important, even if I don't think it's quite the call to adventure, like the initiating incident of the story. But yeah, you see Anakin and Obi-Wan like last time in Attack of the Clones, they weren't in sync when they took on Dooku, and that's why it ended horribly and Anakin lost an arm. But in this one, they're just back to back, and they kind of like are approached with like a Return of the Jedi-esque setup,
Hmm.
and Palpatine is there, and Count Dooku, we kind of later learn, is Palpatine's test for Anakin. It's like, can you kill my goldfish? Are you my replacement goldfish? And he does. And when Obi-Wan and Anakin are separated, we kind of see that Anakin makes bad choices. So Obi-Wan is kind of like unconscious under like some rubble. So Palpatine is usually the one that encourages Anakin to make bad choices. And then we see that uh we see that Dooku is an unarmed prisoner, and it's kind of like Dooku like has both both blades, the red and the blue, kind of over his shoulder, like he's at Anakin's mercy, and Palpatine encourages it, and then Anakin's like kills him.
Hmm.
And then Palpatine says something important. He was too dangerous to be left alive. And Anakin replies, yes, but he was an unarmed prisoner. I shouldn't have done that. It's not the Jedi way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know I'm already well ahead of you here, but that's what I had then for the refusal of the call, which I think is, verbalized by Anakin there, right? The call to adventure is, for me at least, was Palpatine saying, do it, do this thing that is bad, and it's going to set you off down this path that's going to carry out, the rest of your kind of hero's journey throughout the rest of the film. And then you kind of immediately have the refusal from Anakin. He says, I really shouldn't, it's not the Jedi way. And then ends up doing it, and has to deal with this remorse then through kind of this next section of the film, as we're getting the ship landed safely back on Coruscant, well, at least half the ship anyways.
Yeah. And we both kind of considered Qui-Gon the hero of episode one, and then we both considered Obi-Wan and Anakin as heroes of episode two. But this one I was kind of hesitant to cover Revenge of the Sith until like I kind of remembered episode 71 we did the hero's journey with the hero's journal,
Hmm.
and kind of a point they made in that episode is the hero and villain's journey are the same. They have the same steps. Everyone is a hero. Everyone is the hero of their own story, but like so it's like even if Anakin like kind of fails at being a hero in the ethical and moral sense, like he's still going on a hero's journey even though he's like a villain.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. He's still going on. It's still, the same steps. You just have to kind of look at it. It's like looking in a mirror, right? Everything is still the same, but it's just the image of it is flipped, right? So it's the same kind of thing. And because movies, and because this is setting up the original trilogy, and we need Obi-Wan to be an important character that we're going to meet in episode four. He certainly gets a lot of screen time. So I mean, you could argue that Obi-Wan is as important as Anakin here in this story. The big difference for me in this versus Attack of the Clones is that Obi-Wan doesn't really go through any sort of character change through this. Basically, is the same kind of throughout this story. And playing up into A New Hope, whereas Anakin obviously is the one who's undergoing kind of this change and transformation in the story. So really, this one is dialed in as more of Anakin's story.
Yeah, so Anakin goes to get Obi-Wan out from under the rubble after Dooku is taken care of, and Palpatine's like, leave him or we'll never make it. And Anakin says his fate will be the same as ours, and guess what? They all die on a Death Star eventually.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so it's like, oh, their fates are kind of the same. But Grievous is kind of like after Dooku, it's kind of like there's another uh villain, for the heroes to take care of, and he kind of makes it hard for them to escape the ship. Like he launches all the escape pods. So Anakin and Obi-Wan and the Chancellor are kind of forced to kind of like scramble through the ship and like take a crash landing.
That's right. Yeah, you get the crash landing. There's actually a really cool shot that you're only able to do because this whole movie is done on a computer, basically. All of the scenery and all of the ships, and even all of the clone troopers. But you get a really cool kind of shot then when the ship crash lands, and the camera goes up and like into the cockpit of the ship, and you see Obi-Wan and Anakin and Palpatine sitting there in the kind of cockpit area control center of this ship, which I think looks really, really neat. And then, safely back on Coruscant, like you get some kind of interactions here with Obi-Wan, which is actually leading into my step four, but I'm going to not get quite so far ahead of you. But basically they kind of part ways, and Obi-Wan says something to the effect of, I'm not brave enough for politics. I'm going to go talk to the Jedi Council. You go out there, you go with these politicians because you get to be the poster boy, which is exactly what Anakin was propped up as being basically right, all the way back when Anakin says, that, or when Qui-Gon says that Anakin is the chosen one, has literally been kind of the poster boy for the prequel trilogy for this story.
Yeah, and one question I have is like, do you think Anakin knows Anakin wants to see Padme and is like, I'm gonna like get out of the way so you can have your quote unquote secret relationship?
Yeah, I think that definitely there's some knowledge going on there, especially because then you see Anakin go over and Palpatine's there and Bail is there. Bail
Mon
Organa
Mothma
is
and Jar
there.
Jar too.
Mom Mothma, Jar Jar. Everyone is there except for Padme, who is standing behind this pillar, and then they go over and they have this kiss, and she tells him that she's pregnant and stuff like that. So I think that yeah, Obi-Wan is not that daft. Couldn't possibly be that daft. And I think well, I guess I'd have to go back and think about how it exactly overlaps with the Clone Wars, although we're not really talking about that, but basically acknowledges that they're in that's even season 7 and kind of the final arc. So
Yeah, and even though like some parts of Clone Wars I'm not like wild about when it comes to Anakin's characterization and because sometimes I feel like they try to make him a little bit like too much like Han. Um
mm-hmm.
and I really just don't buy I'm gonna commit a heresy, a Clone Wars heresy. Like I kind of didn't really like Obi-Wan's relationship with Satine because it kind of wasn't more about his character, it was more about Anakin's character. And
Mm-hmm.
then we kind of just learned about it, and then Satine's killed off for man pain. So I wasn't a fan of that, but um the vibe I get is that that Obi-Wan knows about Anakin and Padme. I don't know if he knows they're married and like having babies, but he knows something is up, but I think he just ignores it because he's just such a good friend and considers Anakin a brother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. But yeah, she's pregnant. Grievous travels to Utapau, and Lord Sidious informs Grievous via hologram that the separatist leaders are going to be on Mustafar. That's where they're moving, that's where they're hiding. And Palpatine is already pretty sure that he's going to have a younger and more powerful apprentice, like right after Dooku, like died, like he's the one who killed him off, so he's
Mm-hmm.
so he's so sure of himself. So and I guess like when it comes to Anakin, like I think he knows exactly what cards to play. So wow.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, so we're back on Coruscant there. Have we gotten to I've already been through my call to adventure and the refusal of the call. Then is your call to adventure, Cassia?
We kind of see Anakin and Padme being all lovey-dovey, and Anakin's like, "You're so beautiful." And then
He
Padme
has
is
a little
like,
more
"So
chill this time. He has a little more chill this time.
a little, and Padme's like, "So love has blinded you." And then that's like if I were hosting a screening, I would pause it and I'd be like, "Yes, it has blinded him." They're saying it in the dialogue so you understand that. Uh, like I probably like I don't know, like I love the prequel so much and would get so excited and people would be like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna skip that screening, you know." She's probably gonna talk about the hero's journey and stuff for like a few hours, so we're gonna skip that. And then we
Right.
see Anakin uh in bed, and then we actually get to see Padme's suffering in a dream, which I
Mm-hmm.
think
Mm-hmm.
is a step up from Attack of the Clones, rather than just being told what we're seeing. Like, and we see Anakin's kind of like go on the veranda, and he really doesn't want to talk about it, but Padme says like, "How long until we're gonna like, be honest with each other?" And he says like, "I saw that kind of like a dream like I had like with my mom that you're gonna die in childbirth, and like I don't know about the child." And Padme's like, it's probably just a dream, and Anakin says, I won't let this one become real. So that is my call. Anakin has a dream of a dying Padme, and that's what I see as the initiating incident of the story.
Yeah, that's interesting. That certainly is a good initiating incident in the terms of that's really what Anakin is going to be the path he's kind of falling down. Yeah, so that's interesting. I actually had this kind of section here as my meeting with the mentor. As I mentioned, he's literally, splitting from his old mentor, who is, Obi-Wan, there on that landing platform is, basically they're separating themselves then for the rest of the film as he goes to the Jedi Council and Anakin goes in with the politicians and, Palpatine and Padme. So, uh, mine, I'll just run through this here real quick. The meeting with the mentor. The hero gains the supplies, knowledge, and confidence needed to commence the adventure. So I kind of looked at that a little bit as the opposite, right? So he's still gaining kind of knowledge, but really it's not a matter of getting confidence. It's more of a lack of confidence. So I really saw that vision of Padme, dying in childbirth as the counterpoint to confidence. So he's getting the knowledge of her pregnancy. He's having that vision, and really he's starting to have kind of this self doubt as opposed to the confidence that you normally see in step 4, the meeting with the mentor. So that's kind of where I had that.
Yeah, so I have the refusal of the call like right after. Anakin goes to see Yoda, and so it's like Anakin's trying to be a good Jedi, and the refusal of the call step is the hero experiences some hesitation to answer the call. He's really trying to be a good Jedi here. Anakin needs to be honest, but he can't fully be honest, which is probably a problem. And Yoda kind of just offers bumper sticker wisdom, and it's like, be like, let go of everything you're afraid to lose. And it's like, that doesn't really offer solace to someone who's afraid to lose their wife in childbirth, but like,
Mhm.
Anakin isn't being honest. So it's like, yeah, it's not a good situation.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, he goes and has that meeting with Yoda, which I actually had as my step 5. I'm so far ahead of you now. It's wild, but crossing that first threshold, the hero commits wholeheartedly to the adventure, which you just mentioned. Yeah, so I had that meeting with Yoda there as Anakin is committing to the fact that he wants to save, Padme. He even goes on to say as much, I won't let these visions come true, Master Yoda, right? He's really doubling down on the fact that he's going to figure out how to not let her die, just the same way that he feels that he let his mother die, and I think that that's really um, a sign of commitment to this journey for Anakin, who's really taking this knowledge of his secret life, his secret wife and secret child. To Master Yoda, the literal top dog of the Jedi Council, if he's willing to go and expose that part of himself and his life to someone like Yoda, who would be ultimately the highest authority of these bad things or quote unquote bad things that he's done in the eyes of the Jedi Council. I think that that was really him showing his commitment to this adventure.
Yeah, those are good points. And after Anakin meets with Yoda, uh, we learn that Palpatine has been given more executive powers and that Anakin was requested by Palpatine. And Palpatine is like, I hope you trust me, Anakin, because I trust you. And I want you to be my personal representative on the Jedi Council. And Anakin's kind of blown away, like someone believes in him, and he goes back to the Jedi Council and he kind of tells them like Palpatine wants me to be a master, and it's kind of like a meme at this point, but Mace Windu is like, yeah, you're not a master, like take a seat, young Skywalker. It's kind of like an off the book spying job. Like, and if we didn't know that Palpatine was the villain, like it'd be gross, you know? It's like Jedi aren't supposed to do this, you know? Like
Right.
it's morally questionable. So do you think Obi-Wan should have told Anakin about the off the book spying job? Like his job was to spy on Palpatine for them?
Um, yeah, that's hard to say, right? Because you have obviously Anakin's very negative reaction to it, and Obi-Wan's even kind of telling him very sheepishly about it. So I don't know. Would it have been better not to have told them? Um, I guess on one hand, you say that yes, you keep Anakin in the dark, and then that's good. But then on the other hand of it, I don't know if you're gleaming that much information from Anakin then, or if he'd be telling you things that you needed to know. So yeah, that's really kind of the catch 22, right? It's really
Yeah.
putting, Anakin and Obi-Wan both in pretty bad situations, right? Because obviously it's making Anakin then, distrustful of the Jedi Council, maybe even Obi-Wan. It's, putting Obi-Wan at odds with his apprentice and friend here. So yeah, so it's really there's really no good way to get about doing it, and that's exactly the hand that Palpatine had dealt. Right, he was kind of sowing these seeds that were going to eventually kind of come up and butt heads against one another, and it played out exactly like he wanted to.
Yeah. Palpatine wanted to create this awkward situation so like just the trust kind of breaks down and just Anakin feels like everyone wants him like for political reasons. And then Yoda's going to help the Wookiees. So we kind of see like I call him a little bit like the Jedi trio. We see Yoda, Mace, and Obi-Wan, kind of like they talked in two, you know, when they're like Yoda and Mace are kind of like, is he the chosen one? And Obi-Wan has faith in Anakin. But it's it's kind of key on I think Palpatine's part. Like he wants he wants Anakin to be isolated and like Yoda, who's a powerful Jedi, off of Coruscant to kind of further some of his uh executions, you know, like later down the line. So as I
Mhm.
kind of watched it, I was like, oh, Palpatine is kind of like methodically planning this out, and um he is the Senate, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, Palpatine, basically, kind of self-appoints Anakin to be his own personal representative of the on the Jedi Council, and then you have that ultimate kind of blow up you'd mentioned, kind of that meme there where Anakin's going to get seated on the Jedi Council, but he's not given the rank of master, and it's this whole blow up with Mace Windu. You have kind of the spying stuff there with Obi-Wan, and then he even goes and talks to Padme about kind of this and how outrageous it is and how ridiculous it is, and she's talking to him, and I forget the exact line. I was trying to look it up, but he says something to her akin that that sounds like. You're starting to sound like a separatist or something as she's kind of bad mouthing Palpatine and kind of the push and these extra powers that he's taking. So I had kind of this section actually then as my step 6, test allies and enemies. I think that test is really Palpatine, testing Anakin's allegiance to the Jedi Council here. The hero explores a special world, faces a trial, and makes friends and enemies. Obviously now at this point he has made the friend of Palpatine, and his enemies are basically his former friends. So I mentioned, Mace Windu, kind of that little tuffle with Obi-Wan over the spying, and then even here as he's kind of lashing out at Padme. So I really saw this as step 6 here in my hero's journey analysis.
Wow. Usually I'm the one who's like so far ahead. So
I
it's kind
know,
of
I
nice to
know.
be on the other side. So
Well, and
um
it's so interesting. If anyone out there listening is ever going through this, this one for me at least was tricky because really as the step 4, the meeting with the mentor, really you could place that almost any time that Anakin and Palpatine are talking, right? Is this meeting with the mentor? So it's easy to that one's kind of on this like this sliding scale of things. So depending on really where you want to place that, I think is going to kind of guide your hand and how you lay out the rest of this adventure. So but yeah,
Yeah.
that was what I saw there is the test allies and enemies, because really the enemies of Anakin Skywalker in this are, the Jedi Council of Obi-Wan, of Padme, of the younglings, of all of these people. So I feel like it's right here where that kind of clicks into place for Anakin.
Yeah, I think that Palpatine is constantly manipulating and buttering up Anakin and being like, I can trust you. Let me impart wisdom to you. Let me listen to you. But I do have a specific instance that I do think is the meeting with the mentor. But I am glad that you kind of brought up that Anakin and Padme have that scene on the veranda. And I am kind of sad that her political mission, kind of like forming what would be the basis for the Rebel Alliance, was deleted. Like, I understand it is Anakin's story, but
Hmm.
she did kind of have a role, but it was deleted. So it is kind of sad, but you kind of just see kind of like Anakin Padme. It's kind of like Anakin feels strained, like everyone just wants him for his connection to Palpatine. Um, but I think like Padme has more of an open mind, politically, and is like, we've tried war, we should just like try to listen to the separatists and like have a diplomatic solution.
Hmm.
Um, and that kind of they kind of end that, and it's just like, just hold me like you used to on Naboo, and I'm like, oh, it's such a pretty picture. It's a beautiful frame. So, and then we get to the opera, or is it a ballet? It's at the Corsanti, like, opera
Hmm.
house,
Hmm. Hmm.
Coruscant Opera House.
Yeah.
We have an ominous choral arrangement, and Palpatine says that Grievous has been found on Utapau, and Palpatine's like, "Oh, they didn't choose you. They should have. You're super awesome."
Right.
So it's kind of like the Spider-Man meme pointing of no trust, like Anakin and Palpatine and the Jedi Council. It's like, you don't trust me, we don't trust you. It's like kind of just a morally gray situation, and it kind of just seems like the Jedi and Sith, like, they're kind of just like utilizing things to their own ends, and like the Jedi Council should be probably doing things better. But
Hmm.
when kind of Palpatine tells Anakin the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, and kind of tells him like, this Sith had power over life and death, like, I saw that as a dark mentor. So
Hmm.
my meeting with the mentor, my meeting with the mentor, which is the hero gains the supplies, knowledge, and confidence needed to commence the adventure. I saw it as Anakin and Padme at the opera, and it's kind of a dark reflection of that. And
Yeah.
where I put oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, that's a really valid place to put that section as the meeting with the mentor. And that was when I was just thinking about this before I watched it. That was kind of what I thought as well. Spoiler, I ended up putting the opera scene as my step seven, the approach to the innermost cave. The hero nears the
Ooh.
center of the story in the special world, because that's really kind of, I guess validating Anakin. He's really kind of in the belly of the beast then, with this very, kind of opulent scene with Palpatine and this opera, and learning that story. But yeah, I do like and agree that this also is a meeting with the mentor, because he's gaining that knowledge and the confidence to go through, and the ability to hopefully save Padme. So I definitely kind of see your reasoning for that, and definitely agree with it. But that's just not not where I landed on it. It is interesting though to think. I was just pulling this up to look. So um, that that particular scene, the opera scene, happens about 45 minutes into the film.
Hmm.
So about the first third. So that would kind of make sense. I think we lose a little bit of time then on Anakin's story because we spend so much time on Utapau with Obi-Wan here later in the story. But yeah, that's really good stuff. And obviously that scene is very monumental and all that stuff. So
Yeah. And then my crossing the first threshold, um, it's kind of a few scenes for me because Anakin, when he is told by Palpatine about Plagueis having power over life and death, like he says, "Is it possible to learn this power?" And Palpatine says, "Not from a Jedi." And so I think that kind of gets Anakin's mind opened to maybe Jedi aren't the way, you know? So
mhm.
it gets he's kind of questioning things. And I'm kind of glad that Clone Wars season 7 exists because I used to think this movie took place over weeks and months, but it's literally 3 days. But we see that Obi-Wan is going to Utapau, and Anakin's like, "Oh, the Chancellor wanted me to go," and like the Jedi Council are just like, "Shut up, Anakin, you're not going."
Right.
And
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, okay." And I just need to say that Revenge of the Sith has better CGI than a lot of current films that are coming out. Just look at the skyscape and the cityscape. It's beautiful. And maybe some people are like, "Oh, George Lucas relied too heavily on CGI," but I'm like, at least he was kind of like he was pushing like CGI forward even more than some modern films, I think. And like he gave his artists like they were included from the start, and like he gave them enough time to finish their work. So it looks pretty good for a 2005 film. That's what I think.
Yeah, by and large, yeah, I think that it looks pretty good. I think especially the stuff on Coruscant looks probably the best of the stuff. And there was a lot of that stuff in Attack of the Clones too. So, you know, probably we're able to learn a wee bit of lessons and stuff from doing that and the extra render time. Some of the stuff I don't know, doesn't look quite as good, I don't think. But yeah, by and large, yeah, for the 2005, it looks pretty excellent all around.
Yeah. So it is, after that aside, it is very smart that Palpatine is leaving Anakin all alone with Mace, like the person who dislikes him the most. And we have that scene between Anakin and Obi-Wan saying goodbye as friends, and Obi-Wan is in the light and Anakin is in the dark, and it's a scene that just makes me sad. And it's like I feel like Anakin really, really is trying, and Obi-Wan does believe in him, and it's like when you separate them, Anakin is going to be manipulated and I mean also make bad choices of his own volition, but it's just sad.
It is just sad. That's right. Yeah, the downfall now is in full swing. It's coming. The ball is rolling. There is no stopping it. Um, but it might be time to stop to check in, grab a coffee. I don't know. What do you think?
1 second, because I'm there with you. So before Obi-Wan did leave to Utapau, he visited Padme because like Anakin is at Padme's apartment and he can kind of sense that Obi-Wan was here. And I am so grateful there was no love triangle. Like I think in some treatments of the script there were hints of that, but they just were like, no, it's stupid. And in the early 2000s, like love triangles were all the rage, but I'm just so glad we didn't have one. And Padme says,
Yeah.
"Oh, he was worried about you." And Anakin's just like saying like I just feel like I'm not the Jedi I should be. And but I am going to become the most powerful Jedi ever, and I'm gonna stop it. Like, you're not gonna die. And Anakin cuts over Padme and says, "No, I promise you, you won't die." And that's where I saw um it's kind of like from Anakin goes from "Is it possible to learn this power?" to "No, I promise you," to Padme, like, "This won't become real."
Hmm.
That's where I kind of saw the crossing of the first threshold. So yeah, Star
Okay.
Wars wouldn't have happened if women's healthcare and therapy existed in
That's
in
right.
Star Wars.
Absolutely. That's right.
And on that note, I guess, like, do you think the Coruscanti Opera House has a coffee bar?
I would assume there's some sort of tasty refreshments there at the opera. You know, you're watching those big spheres of water. You're probably gonna get a little thirsty watching this thing. So yeah, I think it's about time to retire here at the end of Act One and go grab ourselves coffee or hot chocolate or Corellian ale or something and check in with what we've been getting up to, reading and watching stuff.
Yeah. So that's the end of Act One. So I feel like you were kind of waiting forever. So I'm sorry that I was just kind of, behind you this time.
Oh
Um,
no. No, it's totally fine. Yeah, like I had a really hard time with placing the meeting with the mentor, and then obviously I placed that kind of, that first, more or less interaction there with them.
yeah.
Just because I thought that it lined up. But yeah, that one that part of it was tricky for me to come up with. But yeah, I don't know.
So
Interesting.
now we can take a break from the complexity of Revenge of the Sith. So what have you been watching, reading, playing, or doing in your downtime?
Yeah, so I've been reading the heresies, getting going on our episodes of that. We should have had the heresies for Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones out by now, and look for the heresies of this one. And then we're going to be getting into a different book and a little different theme kind of when we get to the original trilogy. So I'm going to be starting up on that here, hopefully in the next couple of days. What else have I been doing? I finished up watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which was excellent. I really liked it. That came to a very fulfilling conclusion. I liked that. I finished Love and Death, which was a miniseries on HBO, and that was pretty good. And now I'm just gearing up for summer. Basically, we've got some family coming in to town, so I'm spending more time outdoors and doing those kinds of things. Going to Charlotte FC soccer games is a good time. I've not been playing Jedi Survivor still, not had any chance to do that. So hopefully that'll be soon. Hopefully the next time we do one of these end of Act One coffee breaks, I'll have played a little bit more of Jedi Survivor. But what I have been doing is watching the Indiana Jones films, getting ready. Dial of Destiny comes out here in just a couple of weeks. It's probably already been out by the time you're listening to this, but getting pretty excited for that. Going back through the four Indiana Jones films and gearing up to go check out Dial of Destiny. But that's what I've been up to, Cassia. What have you been doing since we last spoke here about Attack of the Clones?
Yeah, so I finished my Indiana Jones rewatch. So it's a fun series to revisit. And revisiting Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I was like, this isn't as bad as I remembered. So maybe you'll have that, or maybe you'll be like, this is worse than I remember. Like, everyone's perspectives are different, but yeah, like, I'm having a fun, like, uh vanilla Coke Zero with coconut creamer. One of these days, you're gonna try it and
Mm-mm.
you're gonna be like, Cassia has bad taste, but I love it.
That's true. Well, here's a spoiler. I really don't like coconut, so I'm probably never going to try it. I'm just going to have to assume you have bad taste.
Okay, that's an interesting thing that I think you've told me, but I'm like, really? Coconut? You don't like it? But okay. Um, so I watched The Edge of Darkness. It came out in 1943, and
Yeah.
it was about Norwegians resisting the Nazi invasion that happened there, and it starred Errol Flynn. And what was interesting is that when this came out, like we didn't know, like it wasn't 1945 yet. Then the Nazis hadn't surrendered. The Axis hadn't surrendered. Like it was written and filmed during a time that a lot of these things, like you're like it could go. We don't know the results. So
Hmm.
that was interesting.
I'm gonna have to go check that out because another thing that I haven't finished it yet. I've only watched the first part of it. I think there's 3 episodes, but I just started the U.S. and the Holocaust, which is a documentary by Ken Burns and Lynn Novick and Sarah Botstein. It's on PBS, so if you have a subscription to PBS, I think it's like $3.99 a month or something like that. You can watch that, or I think you can do that subscription through Amazon too. But watch the first part of that. It's really excellent. As a big fan of documentaries, and Ken Burns documentaries are always really well done, and very poignant and important and stuff. So I have watched the first episode of that, so I recommend checking that out if you're into history and documentaries. And that kind of ties
Yeah.
into that film you were just talking about there, Cassia.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I think you recommended it and I have heard of it. So that is on my list. And I did end up seeing Across the Spider-Verse 3 times. I saw the original Into the Spider-Verse 3 times in theaters, and I was like, it it fits. So I saw it twice in IMAX and then
Mm-hmm.
third like on a standard screen, but I just wanted to get ready for our Across the Spider-Verse episode. I'm so excited for. Hopefully it all works out. But I did also watch Far From the Madden. See, I said it wrong. I always thought for years it was Far From the Maddening Crowd, but it is
Mm-hmm.
Far From the Madding Crowd. And it's based on a Thomas Hardy novel. And you know what? Good for her. Like she has 3 men vying for her hand. It's like good for you. Uh,
Good for
that's
you. That's
great.
right.
But I also, after my Indiana Jones watch, I've been watching the Lord of the Rings movies. Kind of have to break them up, like because like they're like 3-hour movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I break them up. See one part of like I'm in the middle of Two Towers right now. Um, and I'm just kind of like blown away by Lord of the Rings. I didn't really grow up with it. Like I've only seen them a few times, but when this came out, like I'm guessing like it was kind of like when the original Star Wars came out in 1977. Like the effects look good. It looks beautiful, shot on location in New Zealand. It's gorgeous. Love it. And even some of the CGI in the Two Towers and the Fellowship of the Ring, I'm like, this is so much better than some modern films.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely you can definitely tell the amount of time and care they put into that stuff. And I mean, CGI is still very expensive, and it still takes a lot of hands to get it to come to fruition. But especially then, it was so expensive and time consuming and things. So if you really wanted to do it well, you really had to commit to doing it. So.
Yeah. And then my grandfather, he's awesome. He's in his 80s, but he read Sapiens and he took notes on it. He has like the explained notes on Amazon too. And my
Hmm.
grandfather also, like when he loves a book, he orders like 20 copies and like gives it to friends and family and people who stop by.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, so he gave me a copy of Sapiens and I started it. It's so interesting. It's by Yuval Noah Harari. And there's also like the Sapiens, a graphic history, part 1 and 2. So I'm just trying to read that so I can talk to my grandfather about it when I'm done, and maybe we'll have a little book club.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we're being kicked out of the Coruscanti coffee bar because they're like, is she drinking a soda? And literally, did she put coconut creamer in it? Like, we're against coconut here. So,
That's right. I'm going to side with the Coruscanti
oh,
ushers at the Opera House and say coconut
damn.
cream out of here. So yeah, let's get back. Let's get back into the story.
Yeah. So, Act Two, test allies and enemies. The hero explores the special world, faces trial, and makes friends and enemies. And what I kind of saw as the special world is Mustafar. We keep on hearing about it, but we won't get there quite yet. Um, I just kind of see like Anakin is dealing with the Jedi Council, Padme, and politics, and Yoda's on Kashyyyk, and Obi-Wan is on Utapau. They're all busy dealing with their own stuff, but Anakin is just like seeing this new side of Palpatine, and Palpatine's constantly just being there for him, and Mace is like, I hate you, Anakin, go away. That's what I kind of saw as test allies and enemies.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, those are definitely some allies turned enemies, frenemies kind of thing. So that makes a lot of sense. As I mentioned, I my test allies and enemies were there when he was not granted the rank of master. But yeah, they both kind of involved Mace Windu in that turn of approval there for both of us in that step six.
Yeah. One question I have for you is what is your favorite Star Wars soundtrack by John Williams?
My favorite Star Wars soundtrack by John Williams. Let me think. I really like the soundtrack for The Force Awakens.
Hmm.
I really like the soundtrack for The Phantom Menace. If I'm probably listening to one, it's going to be either of those two. But in terms of the soundtrack within the film, it's Revenge of the Sith. Especially I've always really liked. I don't even know what the title of it is, but you go through you kind of the end of it where you have Anakin's dark deeds, and then um, kind of that whole like fall section, Battle of the Heroes, and then kind of the I don't know if it's called like the end credits or whatever the title of it is, but where it's going through kind of all of the Star Wars themes basically as it's culminating into the credits coming on. So yeah, Revenge of the Sith in terms of the one that's pairing up with the film is my favorite one to listen to while I watch, I guess, if that makes sense. So
Yeah. That's that's so cool. I didn't know that. But Revenge of the Sith is my favorite John Williams soundtrack. Like I think kind of when he gets to the third installment of a trilogy, he we kind of like know the themes that have been established, and he kind of gets more experimental. And I mean, I grew up with the prequels. The original trilogy kind of has that romantic, orderly sound, kind of like because it's like an age of empire, and the prequels kind of have more of a chorus throughout,
mhm.
and it's kind of more percussive, kind of because I think the Force like is kind of being like a Greek chorus, and it's more percussive, it's more free. So yeah, that's kind of just a fun side note. I love John Williams and his composing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's no wrong answers for favorite John Williams thing, even if you step outside of Star Wars. I mean, you have, Jurassic Park, E.T., um, Jaws,
Schindler's List.
all of the things, Schindler's List, which I think he won an Oscar
Hmm.
for all three of those. Uh, he didn't get nominated for an Academy Award for any of the prequel trilogy, which is shocking and kind of appalling, to be quite honest, to not get
Yeah.
one out of the three. But yeah, I don't
I think
know
there was
where
kind
I
of
was
an
going or
anti
what else I was saying about
prequel
that.
trilogy stigma. Like,
Yeah,
uh,
I mean that's true, I guess. But I mean, it was nominated for other Academy Awards, even Best Makeup, and I would say that arguably here in Revenge, we're getting way off on a tangent now. Revenge of the Sith has the least impressive makeup work of the three prequel
yeah,
trilogies. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where
Yeah,
we're going with that, but
yeah.
just to
It
say,
is
I don't know.
interesting because I was looking on the because I had been watching Lord of the Rings. Like I think there was a rule that was very unpopular. It's like any movie that kind of incorporates themes from an older already released movie can't qualify. So maybe that kind of affected the prequels, and I think they ended up getting rid of it. So like, you know, like Lord of the Rings was also nominated, I believe, but yeah,
Mhm.
music is good. It helps tell the story. So,
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Lucasian world building. I love it. Like Utapau, it's like a sinkhole. There's water at the bottom, you know. And originally, I think like when farther ahead in the story, when Obi-Wan is kind of shot on his boga, he was going to fall into the water. It was going to be like a baptism, and Qui-Gon was going to appear, but don't want to get too
Mm.
far ahead. But back on Coruscant, we get a hologram that says that on Utapau, Obi-Wan took on Grievous, and the Jedi are kind of like being a little gross, and it's like, go see what Palpatine's reaction to this is, you know. So Anakin goes, and Palpatine's literally looking at the Death Star plans at work, like, and it's even incorporated into his decor. It's like the more you look at it, it's like everything's red and black, and like there's literally
Yeah,
a Sith fresco on the wall.
that's true. I guess he is the boss, I guess, of Coruscant and the whole galaxy. So I guess who's gonna check him on, looking at inappropriate stuff at work. So
Yeah,
I guess that's true. But yeah, you get the it's not really an aside, I guess, it's important to the story, but that time with Obi-Wan there on Utapau and the chase and the kind of confrontation with Grievous there. Have always really liked Grievous kind of as a character. Kind of similar to our other villains here in the prequel trilogy. Didn't really get to spend enough time or learn much about them, unfortunately, which is maybe a miss. But I always really like that. Always kind of like this segment and interaction. I always thought it was really fun and it looked really great. I do wish though that after then Order 66 kicks off kind of at the tail end of this and they blast at Obi-Wan there and falls down into the water that basically just kind of get lumped in with the rest of Order 66. I might have liked just a little bit more. So like you mentioned, kind of the Force Ghost thing with Qui-Gon that got cut or maybe something else. But yeah, that really kicks off kind of the downfall of what's happening here when that takes place.
yeah. So what I have written down for my approach to the innermost cave, the hero nears the center of the story in the special world. It's that Anakin learns Palpatine is Darth Sidious. What did you have for that step again? I think you might have already said it.
Yeah, so my approach to the innermost cave I had as kind of the opera scene, but I think it really kind of begins there and goes and you'd mentioned after the opera scene he goes and has kind of that interaction with Padme where he's accepting that he's going on this mission and then basically then that next kind of interaction that he has with Palpatine back in his office is where Anakin finds out that he is the this Sith Lord, right, that he is Darth Sidious basically. So even though I'd kind of place it as the opera scene, it's really kind of that whole section there where he's learning
Yeah.
that Palpatine knows the ways of the Sith, and then that is kind of confirmed. So really, just that kind of section, I guess, was my innermost cave. And really, I kind of saw the cave as kind of more internal within Anakin. It's more tied to his feelings and emotions than someplace of like a physical destination that he was going to, I guess.
Yeah, it is interesting because sometimes like these steps of the hero's journey, they can be one sentence, they can be a scene, they can be multiple scenes. Um, and that can vary depending who watches it, person to person. So I think back in my my younger years, I would be like, no, the hero's journey has to be this. It's black and white. It's only this, this, and this. And if you don't think that, you're wrong. Like the, I don't know. I kind of like get more loosey goosey, and I'm just like, have fun with it. As I get older, hopefully that comes across. And if not, I'm sorry for my failings, but
Yeah. Everyone down in the comments send me some words of encouragement as Cassia, yells at me offline to tell me I was wrong. But no, yeah, it's open to interpretation. And like I mentioned, I think it was in the Phantom Menace one that, even, if George Lucas were here talking to us now, he'd probably place those steps as somewhere else, or he might not have
yeah,
even been thinking about it, right? He'd written, so many stories, within this world at this point, might not even have been on his mind. He was just trying to get from, point A to point B here in this story. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, and that's why stuff like this is so fun. I think for us, and hopefully for the listeners out there, to kind of go through and break it down and see where you and I line up and where we're different, and then people listening at home, also kind of line up and are different and have different opinions on it and stuff.
yeah.
Everyone is correct in saying that R2 really is the hero. We should be talking about R2 more instead of Anakin at all. So
I mean, his name starts with an A, so A for R2. It's at the beginning of the alphabet, so therefore he is the hero.
that's
Um,
right. That's right.
I mean, Anakin also starts with an A. I know how to spell, but like, never mind. Um,
Never.
yeah.
Well, that's okay. That's
So
okay. His name is about to not start with an A anymore because he is about to become Darth Vader. So, yeah. So there you go. There's the caveat, I guess.
yeah, what is so interesting is like kind of when Palpatine finally kind of says like, "I'm a Sith, I'm Darth Sidious." Like, it is kind of funny that it took the Jedi this long. Like when Count Dooku was like, "The Senate is led by a Sith Lord," and they're like, "Huh, who leads the Senate?" Like, hmm, I don't know. But
That's
they
right.
kind of finally figured that out. But what kind of gets Anakin mad is I don't think that Anakin told Palpatine about his secret marriage with Padme. I think he guessed it, but when when Palpatine says, "Use my knowledge, I beg you, save your wife," like Anakin is like, "What?" He turns on his lightsaber, holds it on the Emperor, and we hear the Emperor's theme.
Hmm.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that obviously, kind of tips him off. It's hard to say, exactly um, what Palpatine knew about Anakin. I know there's kind of some differences there and some of the novelizations and things like that. Like, and obviously Palpatine, knew of the the Tusken Raiders, so it's very possible that he would have known about Padme, or maybe he would have known that Anakin, had this, secret love, even if he didn't necessarily know that it was Padme necessarily, maybe. So maybe there is some part of that he knew, but yeah, that definitely it appears as though in this film that really is kind of the point at which Anakin is really believing that Palpatine knows more than he's let on through this thing.
Yeah. And so much is happening all at once because then we see Obi-Wan defeat Grievous. And I just have to say this because I recently rewatched Indy 4. The flames coming out of Grievous's eyes, they reminded me of Arena when she's kind of overwhelmed by the
Mm-hmm.
being's knowledge. Like her eyes like literally like have flames coming out of her skull.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. As
Yeah.
Grievous gets blasted there in his humanoid heart and catches on fire, explodes,
Yeah.
which is pretty fantastic, I guess.
So technically the separatists are should be leaderless now that Grievous is taken care of by Obi-Wan on Utapau. So Anakin goes to Mace and tells him that he's not going to give up his power because he is Darth Sidious. He's a Sith Lord. And Mace says, "If what you have told me is true, you will have gained my trust." I think what Mace should have said is, "Thank you for telling me that. You have gained my trust."
Hmm.
Um, do you think if Padme had gone with them, like, do you think a peaceful transfer of power would have happened? What do you think?
Probably not. I don't think there's any sort of situation where there would have been a peaceful transfer of power. I think Padme
Yeah,
would have bit it even faster than Kit Fisto and who was the other one that was there. Did not pose much of a challenge to
Agent Kolar, I think.
Palpatine
Sassy
uh
Tim.
there in that. Yeah, so I don't think there was any getting out of that ordeal. Maybe had
Yeah,
Anakin been there from the start, I don't know, probably not. Still probably would have went down the same way. So
yeah. Hayden Christensen was directed in the Padme's rumination scenes. Like, even though Padme, I don't think she has force powers, maybe she gets some like force power pregnancy hormones or something, but it's like they can sense each other across the city. It's haunting, and I love that skyscape, just love it. I put hearts around that, but it's
hmm.
kind of like Sundown for the Republic. Like Hayden Christensen was directed in that scene to be like, you just killed Padme. Like they're gonna take care of the Chancellor, and you killed her. But
Right. Hmm.
he's like, no, I can't let that happen. And Anakin comes onto the scene. We can debate who won, if Palpatine was manipulating Anakin and being like, "Oh, I'm defenseless," or if Mace won. Like, lots of people have said lots of different things. Um, but what's important here is Mace says, "I'm going to end this once and for all." Anakin says, "You can't. He must stand trial." Mace says, "He has control of the Senate and of the courts. He's too dangerous to be left alive." And Anakin says, "It's not the Jedi way." And what I kind of see is Palpatine and Mace Windu, when it comes down to it, like they justify themselves, like saying, like,
Hmm.
X is too dangerous to be left alive. It's too dangerous. We can't do that. So he's Anakin's definitely justifying himself, but from his perspective, he's like, Jedi and the Sith are the same. So he's going to side with Palpatine, who said he would help him save Padme.
Hmm.
So that is my ordeal. The hero faces the greatest challenge yet and experiences death and rebirth. Anakin sides with Palpatine against Mace Windu.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are back online here. That's what I had as well.
Woo!
And yeah, you bring up the good point because the dialogue is almost like verbatim, right, from what Palpatine tells him, at that first encounter with Count Dooku as to what, Mace Windu is telling him here, against Palpatine. But now Anakin has, kind of a horse in this race, so to speak, right? And learning this knowledge from Palpatine. So he's seeing it different and he's seeing the Jedi different. And I guess you could make the argument then that he, at the time, was respectful of Palpatine and his teachings and um, his mentorship, and he's not felt that way about Mace Windu. So I guess that is coming into play there too. But yeah, step 8, the ordeal. Yeah, I had goes to arrest Palpatine, but ends up getting the Jedi killed, and step 8 has this experience of a death and rebirth. So obviously, we are seeing now the death of Anakin Skywalker and the birth of Darth Vader.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like some people just have expectations, or like they kind of made up their mind before they watch this movie, because I'm like, they're like, Anakin's fall came out of nowhere. And I was like, okay, like I'm kind of like, it builds, it might not be the story they wanted, but like if you watch 1 and 2, like there are steps and uh a culmination, like And
Hmm.
if you listen to it, like the Jedi like don't trust him. They're doing sketchy stuff, justifying themselves, So, but Anakin does feel bad. He asks himself, "What have I done?" Um, and kind of what I got from that scene is like it looks like Anakin feels like he can't turn back. Like it looks like he's disassociating, like he's out of it.
Yeah, he definitely has this look of, yeah, obviously of remorse, but also kind of this look of, well, this this is the road we're going down now, right? He doesn't seem to have a way back. I do think it maybe kind of moves a little bit quick from that remorse to him at the Jedi Temple. Maybe I don't know, you don't see that remorse linger around too much, but yeah, you can definitely see kind of the emotional turmoil of it. And I never really understood the any of the complaints that that this happened too fast, especially if you're taking into account that it's kind of the culmination of these prior two films. I guess if you just looked at Revenge of the Sith like completely as a standalone thing, then maybe that's true. But it never was really intended to be any sort of standalone thing. It was always meant to be, built on the backs of the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. So
Yeah. Yeah. And then Palpatine, it's so interesting. I don't know where this voice is coming from, but for my reward, um, which is the reward the hero experiences the consequences of surviving death. I put Anakin is now a Dark Lord of the Sith and Christian Darth Vader. Like Palpatine is saying you're a Dark Lord of the Sith. Like Yoda feels it. And Palpatine is saying the Jedi Council, all the Jedi are extreme like the Jedi Council. We have to eliminate them or else there will be a civil war. So Palpatine is kind of justifying it and he's saying, you have to do this. You must do this. So you are strong in the dark side, strong enough to save Padme. So I think that's why Anakin, he feels like there's a justification coming from Palpatine. And Palpatine's telling him like, then you'll be strong enough to save her. So you have to commit yourself to the dark side.
yeah.
So, what did you see the reward as?
Yeah, I had the same thing there. The hero experiences the consequences of surviving death, and yeah, now he is a part of the Sith, and he has access to to Palpatine or Sidious, and the knowledge, and hopefully the ability and the power now to save Padme, which has been kind of his objective throughout this thing. So if you look at his reward as being what he's been trying to do, and that's to keep Padme from dying, I think that now he's getting access to that, at least on some level. Obviously we know he ultimately will not be able to achieve that, but I think at the time he's seeing that as his reward.
Did you know there's a deleted scene where before Anakin goes to the temple to commit Operation Nightfall, that he and Palpatine go to a bar on Coruscant for a beverage break.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, it was a deleted scene. You might have trouble finding it. It's not on the DVD, but yeah, they definitely went to grab themselves a cocktail, a mocktail to celebrate the birth, the rise of Darth Vader. Everyone's here to celebrate, popping champagne, stuff like that. Palpatine knows how to throw a party and have a good time. And yeah, I think now that we finished Act Two, I think we probably should celebrate a little bit.
Yeah. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be back to discuss the rest of Revenge of the Sith.
All right. Well, we got ourselves a seat at the bar in Coruscant. We see Palpatine and Darth Vader over there. They're having a good time, but we had to get our own, drinks. It's a long road going down the hero's journey for all of this whole tale of Anakin's fall to the dark side. So we needed to grab ourselves a cocktail and a mocktail, and I think we got some good ones here for everyone this episode. So for myself, I'm gonna kick us off here, Cassie. I'm going with a cocktail. This is a riff on one of my favorite drinks, which is a Manhattan. But this is called the Coruscant because it is a little bit darker. It has a little bit of underlying sinisterness, a word I don't know for sure, but that's what I'm saying. It has in it, and this is called the Coruscant. So mixing this up is really simple. I'm going to put into like a shaker tin, 2 ounces of rye whiskey or a bourbon or any kind of whiskey you want, 1 ounce of Amara Montenegro, which is kind of this darker Amaro. It's like an aperitif from Italy, I believe, the Amaro Montenegro. Not 100% sure on that. I have to look that up. So 1 ounce of Amaro Montenegro in there, which is a little darker. Normally in Manhattan, you use like a sweet vermouth, which is more red. The Amaro Montenegro is a little bit darker. So 1 ounce of that, and then couple of dashes of an aromatic bitters and a couple of dashes of I used a spiced cherry bitters because, like I said, I think there's something a little more sinister afoot here, and I like the spiced cherry in this. Just gives it a little bit of a fiery depth to it. So go ahead and shake that up or stir that up with some ice, and then strain it into a glass, and you've got the Coruscant. Garnish with a very lovely Luxardo maraschino cherry, which is dark and tasty. Give that a try. It's a really good one. It is my Coruscant. Perfect here as we see the fall of Darth Vader. It's pretty unctuous and bitter. So the rye whiskey has a lot of spice to it. If you're not familiar with rye whiskey, if you've ever had like rye bread, it has
Yeah.
that same kind of kind of like that spicy ness to it, right? It has kind of more of that taste, and that really comes through in the rye whiskey, and then it pairs really nicely with this Mara Montenegro. Giving it just a little bit of depth. It has a little bit of almost like some like anise and like bitter like coffee notes to it. So it pairs really nicely with that spicier rye whiskey, and then the bitters just kind of round it out, and you get a little bit of that spicy cherryness to it, almost similar to like a ginger spice that you'd get from like a ginger ale or like a really spicy like ginger beer or something like that. So this is pretty good. Like I said, the Manhattan is one of my favorite cocktails, and this is just a darker riff on that. So I like it quite a bit.
Well, that sounds tempting. Kind of like the dark side, you know?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, this is what I have is the Mustafar Mule mocktail. I guess it's like M3, M cubed, 3 M's. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like really struggling to come up with a good drink for this, but I've kind of done some variations of like cranberry juice and ginger beer, ginger ale. You actually recommended to me. I was like, what's a good spicy ginger beer? And you said Q light ginger beer. So the
Mm-hmm.
Mustafar Mule mocktail is 1 can, like 7.5 fluid ounces of Q light ginger beer, 4 fluid ounces of cranberry juice and juice of half a lime. And you can put ice in it if you want to, because I'm a baby, so I'm like, I need ice.
Yeah.
And if you want to be braver, you could put some like jalapeno juice in it or Serrano, in it, but I'm not brave enough for that. So
Yeah, that's right. No, that sounds delicious. I love any kind of ginger ale or ginger beer, mocktail or cocktail. It's one of my jams. So I like that. I like that a lot better than the coconut, that's for sure. So that sounds delicious. So I might have to give that a try. And also I just wanted to make mention of this. And I know it's getting ready to close down, but on the Galactic Star Cruiser, there's a cocktail called the Fiery Mustafarian, which is tequila and mezcal, stone fruit, lime, chili, and black salt. But then it's served with like this little test tube of lava extract straight from Mustafar, and that's pretty fun. So you could get that on the Galactic Star Cruiser if you had a chance to do that before it's getting ready to shut down. And it came in a really cool little round glass too. But that was another Mustafar cocktail there I wanted to mention since we're sitting at the bar here on Coruscant, recounting our good times of betraying the Jedi Order and falling to the dark side, I guess.
Yeah. We'll always have the Galactic Star Cruiser, even if it's not forever, the drinks are. So,
That's right.
um,
Absolutely.
yeah. All right, Act 3. The road back. The hero returns to the ordinary world or continues to an ultimate destination. What I put for the road back, I kind of wasn't sure whether to put Order 66 as the reward or the road back, but what I kind of justify it as is Anakin's journey as Darth Vader. Like, it's kind of all the horrible stuff he does. So it's like Order
Mhm.
66. He takes care of all the Jedi in the temple, along with the 501st Legion, all the way through like what he kind of does on Mustafar to end the war. Like, he shuts down the droid army. So it's kind of like the ordinary world maybe is Coruscant. We kind of started in the stars above Coruscant, and now we get to see like what happens to Coruscant and the galaxy at large.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. On one hand, yeah, you could see as Order 66 as being a potential reward. It's definitely a reward for Palpatine, which I guess would be an interesting hero's journey to go through on Palpatine as well, maybe someday in the future. But yeah, I think that could be viewed as a reward for Anakin. But my road back, I had basically the road back was re uh, getting back into basically the Clone Wars, right? He is going to Mustafar there as kind of the ultimate destination here in terms of the road back. And I viewed kind of the Clone Wars, the dealing with the Separatists, as kind of the ordinary world, which is where I had the ordinary world placed. Way back in step one was just doing Clone Wars stuff, so really going and meeting with the Trade Federation and stuff there on Mustafar as being kind of the ordinary world, and Mustafar being this ultimate destination. But he's on his way there to end the war, and I mean you get the really kind of heartbreaking stuff almost in a way, and you get them saying that Sidious promised us peace because the war's over, but the war's not really over. It was never really meant to be over, I guess. So
Yeah. It's over the way Sidious says it's over. And even though like pretty much all the separatist leaders we see, were corrupt, like they get betrayed, and from a certain point of view that is sad. But
mhm.
so Order 66 is declared. Obi-Wan, his clone trooper in charge of his battalion is Commander Cody. I think that Palpatine orders a personalized Order 66 to Commander Cody because he knows that Obi-Wan is like powerful. He can maybe either talk Anakin down or kill him because he knows Anakin that well. The
Mhm.
rest of the clone troopers kind of just get, like execute Order 66. It's not personalized. It's like kind of like over Zoom. It's like you're fired.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
execute Order 66. And paired with the music, it's sad. Yoda is like, not today, Satan. He escapes.
That's right. Yeah.
Sadly, the the younglings don't escape. There's a lot of 9/11 imagery. Bale kind of sees what's happening. And we kind of see after Order 66, like Kashyyyk gets new oppressors. Like the Wookiees fought against the CIS, with
Hmm.
the Republic, but the Republic is now like turning on them. And then we see Anakin and Padme after everything. They're reunited. Anakin tells his perspective. It's very doctored. He's trying to justify it to himself and kind of tell the best version of events to Padme. Padme
Hmm.
believes it, but he says, I'm going to Mustafar. Uh, the Jedi turned on the Republic and the Chancellor. They're criminals. I don't know about Obi-Wan. Hopefully he sides with us. Otherwise he's wrong, but I'm going to Mustafar to end the war and I will save and protect you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So you got all of the Order 66 stuff going on. You mentioned, kind of the little lengthier one there for Obi-Wan, and you kind of goes through all the different Jedi there on the Jedi Council, and you're seeing, kind of the various places around the galaxy that they were on different fronts for the Clone Wars that were still going on, and maybe should have been, yeah, even more red flags there for Padme, but I think she's kind of
Overwhelmed.
I think she's kind of overwhelmed. I think she's kind of recognizing that something bad has happened, and then ultimately that gets uh, confirmed for her, I guess, when Obi-Wan ends up showing up, just pretty quickly thereafter, after Anakin leaves, because you get Yoda and Obi-Wan are kind of the sole survivors, at least at the time, coming together and trying to figure out really what the plan of attack is going to be, or the plan of action is going to be, now that you know the Dark Lord has taken over, by all accounts, the entire galaxy. Where do we go from here? So.
And because you love R2, I did notice that R2 kind of speaks to C3PO and C3PO is like he's probably under a lot of stress, but R2 noticed Anakin wasn't okay. He wasn't joking. So I don't know,
Mhm.
maybe R2 could have been a therapist,
that
and
that's right. Yeah,
yeah.
if everyone would have listened to R2 from the start, we could have avoided this whole mess for sure. Um, yeah, absolutely.
And when I rewatched The Phantom Menace, I think I just literally learned, in 2023 that Naboo doesn't have a molten core. It's a hollow
Mm,
planet.
hmm
But
hmm
then I kind of realized like Naboo and Padme is the opposite of Darth Vader and Mustafar because Mustafar is just a volcano planet
hmm
and Naboo doesn't even have a molten core. I wonder if they have tectonic plates. I don't know how that works, but I was like, literally, Mustafar is hell. It's the opposite of Naboo.
Yeah, absolutely. It is very much the opposite of Naboo, and Anakin gets there, I guess, ends the war, and then it's just going to be a matter of waiting for Padme and Obi-Wan to show up. So, Obi-Wan and Yoda, they're at the Jedi Temple, kind of sifting through the remains of what Darth Vader has left in his wake. They're able to, change the signal or scramble the signal to keep any remaining Jedi from going back there, and Bale has to sneak them off. But I really like kind of the interaction then you get with Obi-Wan here with Padme, and he asks her, if Anakin was the father of her uh, children, her pregnancy, and she kind of confirms it for him. So you're really left, I guess, kind of wondering like how much of that he knew, or did he know, or did he want her to just say it and acknowledge it, or really what the deal is with that.
Yeah, yeah. Padme doesn't want to believe it. I think maybe subconsciously she kind of knows that maybe Anakin turned to the dark side or is maybe justifying himself, but
Hmm.
consciously it's horrible. She doesn't want to come to that conclusion, so she's not gonna realize it until it's maybe too late.
And I think partially, too, for Obi-Wan, it's him coming to kind of his own realizations here too, right? That he, even if he did know, not necessarily that he allowed it to happen, but he wasn't more, supportive or encouraging of it, or something. So I mean, it's a lot of everyone kind of dealing with their failures, in this instance. Obviously we have Anakin who's turned to Darth Vader, who's, immediately propelled into doing kind of these horrible things. But you also, you have Padme, you have, R2 there that you had mentioned had witnessed it and had gone along, on all these adventures with Anakin. You have Obi-Wan who, was ultimately, I guess, responsible for the upbringing of Anakin. So it's a lot of, feelings and emotions and um, remorse and second guessing and doubting yourself and things in this moment. So
Kind of as Anakin is ending the war, kind of doing the actions, Palpatine is speaking it, and Anakin, or I guess Darth Vader is like the one kind of doing the actions. So there's a special session of Congress, and the Empire is born as the Republic dies, and Ian McDermott, he's just the highlight, I think, of the politics and political theater in the prequel trilogy. And there's that quote, so this is how liberty dies with thunderous applause. And it's just sad because like it parallels like real historical instances and even some maybe present instances. And
mhm.
sometimes it's hard because like, is this just an inevitable repeating pattern? But I think like it doesn't matter if it's an inevitable repeating pattern. You do good things, and I don't think any of us are going to be the one person who changes the fate of the whole world, but I think like you can change the world for one person, a couple of people, maybe your community, like even in the face of like natural disasters or wars, like it's better to do good things, not because you want to feel like you're an awesome, invincible hero, but to help other people.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And that's, kind of surmised there in the, and kind of that interaction that they have in the apartment, right? Where Obi-Wan was coming to, basically tell Padme what he had done and how he had failed. And, part of that it's almost kind of like a confessional, I guess, for Obi-Wan there in that moment, which is kind of a neat kind of time. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into the heresies of Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think that that stuff is very true for the heroes, and then ultimately Padme is going to go and I guess uh, confront Darth Vader, talk reason to Darth Vader to say, this is not a path that you have to go down, right? There's still time. I know you did some bad things, remember? I stand by you doing all sorts of bad things. Tusken Raiders, I can
Yeah.
I can get over this. Too. So she is on her way to Mustafar, and Obi-Wan. He's a pretty clever individual. He's going to stow away there aboard her ship and, kind of get to Mustafar here for our final confrontation.
Yeah. After Anakin kills the separatist leaders and kind of hits the switch on the droids, we do see him with crying. I think he's too far. This isn't really what he wants, but he's justifying himself in doing it. And so Padme goes to Mustafar. Obi-Wan stows away. And Padme and Anakin talk, and Padme says Obi-Wan wants to help us. And then she realizes like Anakin has changed. This isn't Anakin. It's the dark side version of Anakin. And Anakin's like, don't you turn against me too. And Obi-Wan has terrible timing because he shows up and like Padme literally had no idea Obi-Wan was there. And I think like if like Obi-Wan could have done that differently, maybe Anakin wouldn't have force choked her, like Anakin shouldn't have force choked her, but like maybe Obi-Wan should have been thinking about Padme's safety there.
Yeah, he was not putting Padme's safety at top priority, which I guess is just meant to kind of illustrate, right? So, Anakin has gone down this dark path, become Darth Vader in the efforts to save Padme, and then ultimately, is here at the very end, basically trying to kill her there with this force choking her, because anger and hate has already infiltrated his being so much here now as Darth Vader. So yeah, and you have Obi-Wan there. He kind of comes out on the ramp. It's a very very dramatic way to introduce yourself, I will say. I see that you two are having a bit of a spat. I'm just going to stand here, and come down this ramp. So maybe that rubbed him the wrong way. I don't know for sure, but basically, there you have kind of the back and forth between them, with Anakin ultimately saying, "If you're not with me, you're my enemy," and that's going to start here, our Battle of the Heroes.
Yeah, Anakin versus Obi-Wan. And I did mention Matthew Stover's Revenge of the Sith adaptation. Like, be sure to check out the sections, The Dark. This is how it feels to be Anakin Skywalker forever, but especially Anakin versus Obi-Wan. And is it maybe the best duel in Star Wars? Maybe Duel of the Fates is technically a little bit better, but it is my favorite because it's just like blue versus blue, and the orange background of Mustafar really, really kind of highlights that blue. And I think it's like one of the longest fights ever, but it's character driven, and you kind of just see Anakin is like probably the better fighter and more aggressive, and Obi-Wan is kind of like his defensive style. They
Hmm.
know each other so well. Then we also see Yoda versus Palpatine, and it's kind of like the ultimate Jedi versus the ultimate Sith. But kind of what happened is the Sith prepared for this, and the Jedi regressed, and Palpatine ends up winning. I think he thinks Yoda's dead, but he doesn't
Hmm.
check to make absolutely sure because he senses Vader is in danger. Anakin versus Obi-Wan, that duel isn't decided yet. And we do get some character moments with Obi-Wan and Anakin. They kind of just look at each other uh as they're floating over the lava, and Obi-Wan says, "I have failed you, Anakin. I have failed you." And like I mentioned, Anakin is the aggressor here, but he's overconfident. And then we kind of see Obi-Wan take the high ground and kind of like cuts off Anakin's limbs, and he's on the shore of the lava river of lava, and we just see the ultimate breakdown of this brotherhood, brothers in Qui-Gon, and
Hmm.
Anakin just screams, "I hate you!" And all Obi-Wan can say to that is, "You are my brother, Anakin. I loved you." So where are you kind of at right now?
Yeah, so I had this section here as my step 11, the resurrection, which is the hero experiences a final moment of death and rebirth. So they appear when they re-enter the ordinary world. So yeah, so I had my resurrection section basically here as the battle of the heroes, kind of culminating then with Darth Vader being put into his suits and basically being born, kind of Frankenstein's monster style, almost there on that, kind of operating theater. So I think for me, that's kind of the resurrection there, where Anakin is truly gone. Then kind of at this point, laying on the side of that lava river, professing his hate. Padme is pretty much gone at this point. Their brotherhood is broken, and he's betrayed everything that he had promised to take care of. So that's what I viewed as the resurrection. But what about you? What did you think here about the Battle of the Heroes? Did that fall into your step 11 or?
So Anakin versus Obi-Wan culminates in Anakin is burned, and we see Vader is built as Padme gives birth on Polis Massa, which kind of evokes 2001, A Space Odyssey. And
Mhm.
I was able to kind of hear it when I watched it on my TV rather than my laptop. I don't know, like maybe if you have headphones and you can hear it, you can hear Anakin's heartbeat and it stops as the Darth Vader helmet goes down on Anakin. So I
Hmm.
kind of interpreted it as Anakin and Padme die so Vader may live. So it's like Anakin, the good person he was, dies along with Padme. So Vader is born slash created. And this is my head canon. And I wish it were like explicitly canon. Even if George Lucas says this isn't canon, I'm gonna consider it canon. I
Okay.
don't believe that Padme died of sadness. I believe that Palpatine drained her life force and is putting it into Vader. Like it's a
Mm.
Faustian bargain. Um, and you can literally hear the heartbeat stop when the mask goes on. So
Hmm.
that's how I interpret it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I mean, dying of sadness is probably it's probably like on the worst 10 ways to go, maybe to be
Yeah.
sad. I don't know. Yeah, I like that headcanon, yeah, and that basically they're dying so that Anakin or Darth Vader could live on. So that's fair. I mean, you could say that Padme had to die so that the twins could be born, in order to fulfill the prophecy, I suppose, of bringing balance to the galaxy. Maybe that's a way to look at it there too. But yeah, that's getting in then, I guess, to kind of my uh, step 12, which is the return with the elixir. The hero returns with something to improve the ordinary world. I guess you could say on one hand, maybe it's the Darth Vader suit here for Darth Vader slash Anakin. Maybe that's the elixir for him. You could also maybe kind of view they're looking out there at the window at the Death Star being built. Maybe that is the elixir here for Darth Vader, kind of this ultimate super weapon. Because really Darth Vader doesn't get what, you know, or what Anakin had wanted through this, right? So the elixir really is something that avoids Anakin and Darth Vader because, if his ultimate objective here was to keep, Padme from dying, that's the case. So I really then, I guess, didn't look at those as elixirs for Darth Vader, but the birth of the twins was the elixir. Even though he doesn't have any knowledge of them, I think that is uh, kind of the ultimate sort of reward here for Darth Vader, even though it's going to take time to play out. I think that the twins being born was the elixir here.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of similar to you. Um, One thing I remember about skipping school to see Revenge of the Sith, um, even though I was like I had my parents check me out, so like I technically wasn't skipping, but I was like, yeah, I'm so bad. I'm skipping school the last class period to see Revenge of the Sith on opening day, but people clapped when the mask went on Darth Vader, and I was kind of like, that's interesting because it's like he literally killed people. He killed
Yeah,
children.
the hot
And
take,
I'm
hot
I'm
take.
like, yeah. And I'm like, it's kind of a tragedy of a hero, or I guess it's also like an iconic mask I get, but like maybe it's just because like he did go through a hero's journey, even though he's a villain.
Hmm.
Um, so I was like, that's a weird moment, but whatever. I don't know what it means, but with Padme's dying breath, she says there's still good in him, and we kind of see some Frankenstein parallels in the creation of Darth Vader, and we just see Sidious smile. Darth Vader kind of realizes that Padme is dead, and maybe he killed her. And we see Padme's funeral. It's sad Naboo sounds, like she just looks like
Mm-hmm.
she's a painting and she's drowning, but uh, they needed Padme to look like she was dead, so then Darth Vader and Palpatine wouldn't be looking for any of the children. So they just think the children are well, actually, they only thought it was a child because like women's healthcare didn't exist in Star Wars. Like they're like, no ultrasound for us. We
That,
just
that's right.
they come when they come. Uh, so the twins, Luke and Leia, we see Leia taken to Alderaan to be raised by Bail and his wife there. And then we
Yep.
see Luke taken. Oh, I have to make a joke. And Bail kind of said, like, yeah, we always wanted a baby girl and she'll be loved. And then it's like, and we'll drop Luke off on Tatooine where he will be tolerated, you know? He's not
Right.
gonna be a prince, he'll just be like a farmer and tolerated.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah, I love Bale. It was like, yeah, we'll take the girl. We don't want
we want what?
we can't afford in our palace to take both of the kids. They don't even know that they were twins. So what would it matter if I took both of them? So
They might kiss
I
in
do,
the future. That's the result, you know?
I do love that. That's right. I had to set up a potential love pitfall, I guess,
Ugh.
for future installments of the saga. So.
Yeah. C3PO is mind wiped. And Leia, as we said, was taken to a beautiful Ansel Adams world and to be loved, and Luke is tolerated on Tatooine. And we see Vader and Palpatine look at the Death Star that's being built, and but we don't end on the Empire. We end on a binary sunset on Tatooine with hope.
That's right. Yeah, it's our tale of tragedy and the downfall of Anakin Skywalker. Yeah, ends with some the binary sunset there, and yeah, you're left optimistic for the future. And I do know that the twins had to be separated in case they found one, there would still be the other one. So so there you go.
Yeah. Return with the elixir, like you said, is the hero returns with something to improve the ordinary world. So I guess it's kind of like a villain's hero's journey. Darth Vader is there to oversee the new empire with Emperor Palpatine. Unknown to Vader, the Force is balancing out the galaxy with Luke and Leia.
Yep. Yeah, so see, I got well ahead of you here in my hero's journey, but by the end we caught back up together, so that's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how it was with one and two. So, uh, yeah, that was like maybe the longest episode we did. I promise I will edit it because I was the one who's like, we're doing it now. Uh, that's literally what I said. I yelled as it. No, just kidding. I would never do that. Um,
You're doing a text to type and you yelled at your phone and then it yelled at me, is what
all
happened. But
caps, you know.
that that's
So
right. That's okay. I think on one hand, yeah, we did get to this, you know, on behind the scenes of the Old Republic podcast, we did get to this pretty quick. But I think that's kind of good in a way because you're kind of in that mindset of the hero's journey, and we're talking about like this trilogy of movies, so they're kind of really feeding into one another. So I think in a lot of ways it's helpful to go kind of record them pretty quickly, even though you at home might not be listening to this, for several weeks after the Attack of the Clones episode came out. But yeah, I think when you're talking about stuff like this, it's helpful to kind of get those wheels spinning, so to speak, and then kind of ride that train as long as you can. Keep the creativity and that thought process going the right way. So.
so what was your background with Revenge of the Sith?
So Revenge of the Sith. So I mentioned in the Attack of the Clones episode that was kind of my Star Wars film that I had seen probably the least from the time in my life where it was. Revenge of the Sith was the opposite. So this came out in 2005, and I had graduated from college in 2004. So I was out into the world with my like first like quote unquote real job, and things like that. So I had a lot more kind of disposable income. I didn't have school and stuff, so I could go and I could watch Revenge of the Sith. I could go to the store and buy all the Revenge of the Sith stuff that I wanted, and there was a ton of stuff for Revenge of the Sith. It was kind of this culmination of the prequel trilogy. I think partially it was probably Lucasfilm, probably it was partially everyone else who was trying to ride that money train. Where like this is probably going to be the last Star Wars forever. So let's
Yeah.
make as much money off of stuff as we can. And they did. It was similar to the Phantom Menace, maybe not quite as much, but it felt like it was, almost as much as that. And I remember, yeah, I absolutely loved it. They kept just coming out with waves and waves of the toys. So I would go, my wife, my to be wife, and I would go to the store, and I'd always look and see, and just trying to collect all this Revenge of the Sith stuff, because yeah, looking back at 2005, like I said, we didn't know if there was ever going to be more Star Wars again, right? George Lucas went back and did this. He made no real indication that he had any desire to go beyond doing that, and who knows how much we are going to get. So it was really soaking it in, and just enjoying the ride of Revenge of the Sith, I thought. But what about you? What was your time like, other than skipping school and I don't know, probably getting I don't know, probably not detention. You said your parents signed you out, so you're probably okay. But what was
Yeah.
your experience like with it?
Yeah, so I told everyone I was skipping school, but like I was checked out with a couple of my friends to just kind of see it opening day in theater. And I think I maybe saw it 3 times in theaters, and I was happy because like the prequels were very maligned when they came out, but this one was reviewed better, so that made me happy. And like you said, like nothing will ever compare to uh the Phantom Menace like release, like when literally probably every food item in a grocery store was covered in like the Phantom Menace characters and stuff. But
Hmm.
this kind of got up there, like there were lots of characters like Yoda, the clone troopers, and Darth Vader. It was kind of like everyone was just so excited for Anakin to become Darth Vader. I ended up getting a Lego Anakin Starfighter, the yellow one.
Hmm. Hmm.
I just
Hmm.
think yellow is a striking color, and I got a Yoda lightsaber, and I usually don't go as far out with merchandise as some other people, but I think it was a better time during the prequels, but there was kind of like the shadow, like, is this the end of like Star Wars? Will there ever be another one? And like I think Lucas, like justifiably so, was kind of like sick and done with it. Like, it's like I made
Hmm.
these prequels. Everyone says I ruined their childhood, so like I'm done, guys.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but eventually that wouldn't end up being the case. But I think there was like gonna be the Force Unleashed in the future that was maybe announced then or maybe soon after. But there were like books and comic books and stuff, but I was kind of like, huh, maybe Star Wars is over. And I think like kind of like after middle school and like kind of in high school, I was always very inspired by George Lucas. I love the stories, and I was like, where did he get the idea for Star Wars? And I kind of looked it up online, and it said that Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers were very inspirational, as well as The Hidden Fortress by Akira Kurosawa was
Hmm.
very inspirational, but also that The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell about the hero's journey was very inspirational. So I was like, huh, I've never heard of that. It looks like kind of a hard book, but I was like, back in the day, because I was in high school and like not as much disposable income, I was like, can I get this? It's kind of expensive. It's like $20 on Amazon. Is it okay if I order a book on Amazon? Which just shows how much time has passed. Like,
Yeah.
because like Amazon is just like kind of like everywhere. It does everything now. But
Hmm.
that kind of got me started on, I guess, my journey of falling in love with mythic storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. See, it's all come full circle, all the way from 2005 to 2023 finally, and then you know Revenge of the Sith led you to, the hero of a thousand faces, and that has, kind of propelled you and yourself on to, your storytelling and stuff like that to come full circle to, use that book and that knowledge you got from the book to go on and reanalyze it.
Yeah, and I don't know, just like looking at the prequel trilogy, even though I kind of have always loved it, like just seeing it from the mythic kind of Campbellian perspective, like each chapter as a whole, like I can kind of like even if like some parts weren't executed well, like I can be like, oh, that's why they made that decision there, and uh it helped me appreciate and love the prequels more.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can think about them a little bit more analytically, and I think, if it's not, been obvious here and, talking about the sequel trilogy, it's a trilogy of films that both you and I really like, but looking at something analytically can kind of help you, understand the decisions that were made and the directions that things went as well. So it's useful in understanding the story and also useful sometimes in understanding the way a story was told.
Yeah. So I think that's like maybe one of the longest episodes we've done. And like I said, I promise I will edit it and maybe take off like 10 minutes.
Hopefully everyone out there listening at home has enjoyed kind of going on this hero's journey with us here through Revenge of the Sith. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. Stay tuned for the Revenge of the Sith heresies. We're going to be talking about that here in the not so distant future. So make sure you check in on that. And then we'll probably be back with kind of a hero's journey, maybe like a not a full on analysis like this marathon we've just been on for each of the
Yeah.
prequel films, but kind of more blown out, just kind of going through where we think the steps land on kind of the prequel trilogy. So stay tuned for that, and thanks so much for checking this one out. We definitely appreciate it.
Yeah. May the force be with you.